I was just saying today, to simplify it, these aren't the exact percentages, but I would say 50% of quarterback is traits. And occasionally a player like Big Ben or Cam have remarkable traits. So those traits are size, movement, athleticism, toughness, all the obvious stuff you can see on TV. The other 50%, and it may be a smaller percentage, is film study, galvanizing the locker room, kind of obsessive nature, pre-snap. That's the stuff we can't see. So if you are Cam or Big Ben or Josh Allen, where your traits are like otherworldly, top 1% of quarterbacks in my lifetime, Dan Marino had that, then you don't have to maybe have the quite the self-awareness, the film study, the pre-snap excellence. You don't always have to be a great teammate or work out as hard like Big Ben didn't in the offseason. So Shedeur Sanders, to me, college and pro, the traits are fine. He's mobile enough. He's accurate. I think moving and stationary is accurate. His size is fine. He's not top heavy like Will Levis, who feels all chest and arms. And he's not spindly like a Matt Ryan or a Teddy Bridgewater. He's 6'2", 218, very solid. He's not a weight room guy, but it's just he's comfortable playing. He runs backwards sometimes. That you got to stop that because he's not athletic enough to escape. My question's always been, his traits are okay. So he's got to be great film study, EQ, IQ, pre-snap, galvanizing teammates. And then I see the speeding tickets, legendary, the New York Giants stuff, which has been now reported multiple times, and I had it validated again last week. It was a disaster. But my takeaway watching him was he's comfortable. It looks a little like college. He's an accurate thrower, doesn't have a huge arm, moves okay. And when he's got to make big throws in the red zone, he's pretty damn good at it. That's my take. Yours?
Well, I would say the pre-draft stuff was real, but it's real for a lot of players that end up falling in the draft, and then they go on to make plays and become good players, and none of it matters ever again.
That's right.
So I think Shedeur, I think there are a lot of different angles here. First and foremost, his dad, which is a huge reason, right? He is a very famous and polarizing individual. Yeah. Is one of the most gifted athletes in the history of American professional sports, and he's one of the best football players. And he wouldn't tackle, and we all say, yeah, LT's and Reggie White, probably the two best defensive players. Deion's probably top 5. He wouldn't tackle. And he bragged about it. He's like, they don't pay me to tackle because he could cover. Well, he's not that level of a talent. But he is very instinctive and a natural football player. And I think two things we don't talk about enough with quarterbacks. One is always toughness. I mean, you got to be tough. So the best players were always tough. Brady hung his hat on, jumping right back up after he got hit. Ben Johnson's been all over Caleb about body language when you get hit. Shedeur's tough, so he brings that to the table. And then there's just a natural feel to his game. I mean, he's a pretty accurate player. And his two, definitely the first touchdown, I think, is when he was rolling left. Like, that's an instinctive layered throw. But he is not alone. He is with a large group of players. There are a ton of guys that were drafted on the third day all over the league that, guess what, are going to go on to be really good players. Some will be Hall of Famers, Richard Sherman, Jason Kelsey, in this class that will be household names. And then there are a ton of guys drafted in the first, second, and third round who are not going to be any good, who within a couple, 2, 3, 4 years will not be on their team and will be considered busts and not good draft picks. It's the NFL. Now, Shedeur is the headliner, but, again, his own team took another quarterback 2 rounds above him. And the reason Shedeur was there in the 5th, and you and I have talked about it, you mentioned the Giants. So the bad teams, the interactions were weird. He wouldn't talk with the good teams. So the good teams that all have quarterbacks, obviously, they would have been interested if they had good interaction. They're like, he won't talk to, we have no interaction. Every player, beside the lock, couple, 2, 3, 4 guys, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter might not talk to Andy Reid and the Bills, right? But most every other player does, right? Yeah. Look at Trayvon Henderson, the good running back for the Patriots that had the sweet run back the other day. I guarantee he talked to every single team in the league, and every team felt good. Obviously, he got drafted in the 2nd. You could have argued he could have gone 20 if he had fallen to 45. Every team would have been interested in a guy like that, and they talked to him. But Shedeur wasn't talking to everybody. So as he's falling in the draft, good teams are passing on him. Good teams need backup quarterbacks, but they're like, and this is what I heard, we just don't know him. He wouldn't talk to our quarterback. But most of these guys, I think a lot of scouts did not think he was a first round pick. I do agree. Like that was a
Yeah.
narrative. That's true. But most people thought he was a pretty good college football player. Like he's better than
Yeah.
most. Like should have gone somewhere second, third, fourth. It's a pretty like a lot of guys can go in the second. If they don't, sometimes they go in the fourth. It's not that crazy. He clearly had a little larger of a drop. And it was one preseason game, and everyone acting like he's John Elway. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. But you give him your opportunity, you take advantage. And I get from the fan base, and you and I were talking about this over the weekend, they're not going to have much of a rope with no one wants to watch Kenny Pickett take a snap. Joe Flacco's 40 years old. Dylan Gabriel's already injured.
Listen, I think it was a great night for Cleveland because my prediction has been Shedeur becomes the backup. They trade Kenny Pickett for a 6th or a 7th, and then Dylan Gabriel gets behind Shedeur because the fans, I mean, if they go 0-4, Shedeur's going to get play. The fans are going to want it, and Haslam listens to sports talk radio. He's very much connected to the media. He is listening to his fan. I mean, he's the guy that said he drafted Johnny Manziel because he talked to in his words, a homeless guy. So it's like Haslam is very much connected to his fan base. And so, and I think Shedeur, and I've said this from the beginning, Dion did him no favors. He really butchered the pre-draft stuff. He's not talented enough to just say, I'm not talking to you. He's not. I mean, Cam Newton's one of the few you're like, Cam's going to get drafted. Big, tall, fast, strong, may have been the most dominant SEC player I've ever seen when the SEC was clearly the best conference. But I mean, the Big 12, stunk, and Shedeur didn't win a lot of games. But as you said, most of that stuff falls by the wayside. There's been listen, if you can play in this league, they've forgiven felons. Like they forgive a lot. So, and my take is, I still think he's a little too unserious for me. I think his judgment is not a strength. But when you watch him play, and this is why fans get excited, I thought he was comfortable looking. Like he just feels kind of comfortable just slinging it in the red zone. He's not frenetic. He doesn't have nervous feet. He just kind of plays. And he looked like, okay, it's fine. UFC 319, this is exciting, is blowing back to the Windy City for the first time in 6 years. Check out the fight card, United Center, all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. So if you've never bet the UFC before,